Welcome to my 274th video on my work with OO gauge. This video will just be a brief review of what I brought back from the Kitchener Model Train Show held at Bingemans Centre in Kitchener, Ontario on March the 17th, 2024. So, this past Sunday, March 17th, 2024, St. Patrick's Day, but I didn't have any green beer, I was up to the Bingemans Centre in Kitchener, Ontario to attend the first Kitchener Model Train Show of 2024. Although we've already been seeing some spring-like weather, this day felt more in the late winter vein, with temps around freezing and even the odd flake of snow in the air. The show was reasonably well attended, but the crowd was well short of that at the pre-Christmas shows. The vendor turnout was good, with basically no empty tables and only a couple of the regulars that I look for missing. I knew that I would be bringing back a few things from this show, as I would be picking up an order that I had previously placed with British Model Trains of Cambridge, Ontario. Apart from that, I was keeping an eye out for more interesting kits to build and, of course, anything else that would help in my various projects. Not so much for buildings, track or other layout creation stuff, as I really can't come up with a realistic plan for expanding any of my layouts currently, given the limited house space available. Here's everything that I brought back from the show. Half a dozen items from my British Model Trains order and several other things I managed to find here and there from various vendors. This was a Canadian model railway show with no specific focus or theme, so naturally most of what was on offer related to Canadian and US railways. There were quite a number of display layouts in scales from N gauge up to O gauge and larger. Interesting to see, but nothing close to my particular interests. I picked up these two Hornby double-O girder bridge segments, one in box and more or less pristine and the other unboxed and a little chipped here and there. I wasn't entirely sure as to the wisdom of buying these. The only way I'd be able to use them would be to fit them under the track somewhere on my 003 rail tabletop, where I already have one of these bridge segments on the back straight. Do I really want to extend that bridge? Multiple bridge segments may look quite nice, but there's only so much room on that small layout, and the bridge segments do make it harder to see the trains. I was tempted into buying these, as they can be hard to find, and these were priced way below what I would pay to buy something similar off eBay UK and ship it to Canada. I brought back these 4 wagons. The 2 brake vans came from British Model Trains. One is the older tin plate type and the other the later super detail version with the plastic body. I already have examples of both of these, but whenever I want to run a freight train I always seem to be searching around for a free brake van, so I figured it would be good to have more. I will be applying decals to these to mark them for LMS service. The other 2 wagons are Trix tin plate items. I'm doubtful as to whether those will run on 00 track, as the earlier Trix stuff tends to have wheels that just can't stay on the rails over 00 points, etc. We shall see. If they derail, I'll have to see if I can re-wheel them. For some reason I acquired a plastic model crate with one of those wagons. I was quite pleased to find this item on a tray amongst various things in more or less junk state. This is the chassis from a 00N2. It's missing the rear pony truck and the front coupling assembly, but still there's a complete motor, drive gears and wheels and centre rail pickup. And the vendor was only asking $5 with a promise that the motor was in working condition. I did manage to find a couple of kits that fit my particular interests. I've built a number of Slater's kits before, but this one was of particular interest to me, being based on a rather unusual Midland Railway prototype, which would certainly have seen service with the LMS in the 1930s, my preferred period. I did find it a little alarming that most of the text on the box specifying what was included with the kit was crossed out. The other kit is nothing particularly interesting in terms of prototype, being just another 7-plank mineral wagon, but I've never built a kit from Ian Kirk, and I always like to see how different makers go about the process of putting together their kits. The Slater's kit had only its British price on. £2.44. I told the vendor that I didn't have any pounds with me, and I believe he took $5 for it. I picked up this boxed 00 loading gauge from British Model Trains. I find these 00 loading gauges about the nicest generally available. With their real chains suspending the gauge bar, they seem more realistic than the later versions with everything cast in plastic. And of course they actually work better, as a load hitting the bar on one of these will go through okay whilst moving the bar, whereas with most later versions any oversized load will either simply get stuck or will knock over the whole loading gauge. I ordered these from British Model Trains too. These are Bachmann couplings with horizontal bar fittings and narrow, long loops. For some time I've been using the short Bachmann couplings with wide loops when fitting new tension lock couplings to rolling stock. There were reasons behind that. Shorter couplings hold the rolling stock closer together, so looking more realistic. And wider loops allow for more variance in coupling to older stock, which tends to have wider loops and off-centre hooks. But the short couplings simply won't work with some rolling stock items, with buffer lock issues preventing the stock coupling well and getting round curves. These couplings should hopefully be more functional on stock with longer buffers, even if that means a bit more separation between the coupled stock items. I picked up these 3 slightly used sheets of decals, mainly because they offered nice white stripes, something I was having difficulty with just recently when marking end-door wagons. I think that Ian Kirk kit may well represent a wagon with an end door, calling for diagonal white stripes on the sides. Finally, in the area of miscellaneous tools and supplies, I picked up these things. At top left is another wire stripper. I hope this one actually works. I did buy a black painted one a while ago, but that was actually next to useless for stripping the kind of thin wire that I generally use for model railway stuff. At top right is a jar of black stuff, which I picked up for $5. I think this will work as coal for loads. At bottom are some packs of styrene strip in various sizes. This sort of stuff is often very useful for fabricating bits for repairs or kit bashing. So, that's it for this show. What will be the next show I'll attend? Well, the Great British Train Show is to be held on April the 27th and 28th in Brampton, and I certainly intend to attend that one, as it is the only local show here in Ontario, Canada, focused on my specific area of interest. I'll see if I can even shoot some video at that show, as there's likely to be some display layouts based on British Railways. Most likely I'll attend that show on the Saturday. In a piece of less than stellar planning, there's also a Woodstock train show scheduled for that same weekend on Sunday, April the 28th. I'm not sure if I'll make both, and indeed would it be worth it, as vendors with British stuff are more likely to commit to the Brampton show. Actually, the next show will be the Lakeshore Model Railroaders Association Flea Market at the Polish Cultural Centre in Mississauga on Sunday, April 14th. I'm not sure whether I'll attend that one. I have done it in the past, but I don't believe I found a lot of interest to me, and it's a bit further away. Still, I may give it a try if I'm not preoccupied too much with other things that Sunday. Anyway, that's it for now. Likely some of these items will appear in future videos.